Kenya was having a problem with her internet, so I think she went to go fix it because it was frozen.
Can you see me now?
You need some
It's still frozen? Yeah. Can you hear me?
We can see you. We can definitely hear you.
Okay. So it keeps freezing every so often. Let's see. Okay.
All right. Hi, everyone.
Okay.
Thanks for joining. I'm Ashara Baker, Community Engagement Manager at the New York Charter Schools Association. Many of you have likely been joining in on our weekly webinars on Tuesday afternoons, where we've gotten policy updates from authorizers. In addition to those policy and regulation topics, we've also been hosting deep dives into specific content on Thursday afternoons. We've covered governance, budgeting and financial management, school reopening plans, and student recruitment. This time, next week, we're going to be covering a virtual event focusing on the census. This will be moderated by Rochester's own Mayor Lovely Warren, who will be joined by state legislators and a representative from the U.S. Census Bureau. And on May 21st, we'll be discussing the process of remote staff recruitment. Following today's presentation, we'll be fielding for questions for the Q&A located right at the bottom of your screens. I just want to say that I am beyond excited to facilitate this parent-led discussion about parent engagement in the current context. Joining us today, we have Carrie Rodriguez, co-founder, founding president of the National Parents Union, as well as two amazing parents, Deborah Garrett from Troy, New York, and Kenya Homely from New York City. In particular, I just want to take some time out to thank Deborah and Kenya for participating with us today. I know that it can be nerve-wracking, even at the best of times, to share feedback about your schools, so perhaps now more than ever. I'd also like to ask folks just to remember that this is done by all of us, as well as Carrie, Deborah, and Kenya. And in the spirit of being critical friends, we just want this to be a forum for those important perspectives. So I'd first like to kick it off just by having you each share a little bit about yourselves. Tell me how things are going for you, how things are going with the kiddos at home. It's been a couple months.
I'll go first if nobody else can go. So we've been home since officially March 13th was the last day of school. I don't think I expected to be home this long. I thought this was going to be like a 2-week thing and we'll be back to work and they'll be back to school. But I think we're getting the hang of it right now. We're kind of like just rolling with the punches. The first couple of weeks was very scary. I have 4 kids at home, so the fact that I was trying to be a second grade teacher, well, twice, a 4th grade teacher and a kindergarten teacher, came with a lot of extra resources that I didn't realize I had.
I can hop on next. My name is Carrie Rodriguez. I'm the president of the National Parents Union. My most important job, though, is being Matthew, Miles, and David's mom. I have 3 little boys who are 7, 8, and 12. My partner has 2 little boys that are 7 and 8. So in this house, there are many, many, many little boys. It's been interesting. You know, we have good days and bad days. We have days where we are really engaged and excited about Prodigy Math and learning something new, and we're going to do an experiment and we're going to read. And then we have days when the wheels come off and I call a snow day. And we're going for a walk, and we're gonna go and bounce on the beds and play some games and goof around, because that's what we got to do. And so we're trying, and there's one of them right now. But we're kind of rolling with it, because we're finding that the most important thing that we can do right now is make sure that our families are healthy, that we are functional. We are all crazy with all these little boys, but we are happy, and we are trying to turn this unprecedented challenge into a moment of opportunity for our family, and to think deeply about the learning that we're engaged in right now.
Wonderful.
Hi,
What about you, Kenya?
Can you hear me? You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I have a 3-year-old and a daughter and a 7-year-old son. And my daughter, she's not so much getting homeschool activities as much as my son. And my son, he's just about had it. He's like, Mommy, I don't understand why we have to do school stuff at home. He's like, school stuff is for school. So we had this talk this morning about, the school is closed right now, and this is for your safety. You have to be home. But he's saying okay, but in his mind, he's like not really processing everything. So yeah. Well, on the days that we have activities that's hand-on that the teacher assigns, he's great. Videos and dancing, those are fun. But when it's time for actual work that the teacher assigns, yeah, that's when we're struggling.
I can imagine it. It's definitely a hard balance. So I give kudos to all of you ladies that are doing it, and dads as well that are doing it all from home. Carrie, you have a national perspective, and you've had a chance to talk to parents across the country. What have you heard in terms of bright spots?
The bright spots, and we do, I mean, our National Parents Union is actually a group of more than 200 organizations in all 50 states, DC and Puerto Rico. Every morning, we stay connected with families across the country. Deborah's actually been on with us in the morning, checking in to figure out what's happening in Troy. We check out, what's happening in cities across the country, checking in with families just to say hello, what's happening in your communities, what are people feeling. We reach over 1 million families every single week, which is extraordinary. But we knew from the beginning that families were going to be seeking connection. And so what's been an extraordinary bright spot is seeing parents really step up to the plate and be doers. We're doers in our own homes. Automatically, we've got to be problem solvers and figure out how we can keep our families intact, keep people happy, the big people and the little people, keep them engaged. We're very worried about making sure our kids are not falling behind. But of course, our organization is filled with the parent activists and advocates across the country that are the doers, making sure that all of our families in the neighborhoods are connected, and that they've got the food they need, and they have the resources they need. And if, a Chromebook's dropped off with a hotspot and somebody doesn't know how to hook it up, it's our organizations that are going out and kind of filling that gap and making sure that people have the resources, the food, and the information they need to keep their family strong. So a couple of really amazing hotspots and bright spots for us have been personally the fact that families have been able to get engaged with their children's education in ways that we've never seen before by necessity, which is a good and bad thing, because many parents, as they first started, into this brave new world of becoming an educator, one of the first things that I did, as schools were trying to figure out what does this remote learning look like, was go to the Great Schools website. I've got a first, second, and sixth grader. I clicked on sixth grade and I automatically assumed that my child was going to be ready for sixth grade worksheets for that day, just until the Monday was going to kick off and we got some instruction from the school. I found out that my sixth grader was not ready to do those sixth grade worksheets, and we had to try fifth grade. But in reading, we could try 8th grade. You know, it's really, it's been a moment for me to sit down and really examine what my child knows and what he doesn't know, what time of day he likes to learn, when he is most engaged, the things that makes him curious, the things he's good at, the things he struggles with for all of my kids. And I think parents are really exploring that. And also the fact that parents are strong and smart and fighters, and they don't give up, and they're problem solvers. You know, as an organizer and an activist, the fact that people across this country, parents and families across this country, are coming together and looking at this unprecedented challenge as a moment of opportunity to convene a conversation about, you know, what education should look like in the future. Many of us have been fighting around equity issues and trying to make sure that we have equitable access to high quality education for every child. And this could be a moment where, you know, we re-examine how we do this whole damn thing. So seeing parents step up to the plate and be ready for that conversation has been extraordinary. I love it.
I agree. I think we're all having aha moments and we're figuring out as we're going along. Kenya and Deborah, does any of that resonate with you? Are there any particular bright spots just from your own experience at home or other parents that you've reached out to?
I think what's happening for me is that I have to echo what Carrie was saying. You are able to see exactly what your kids' weak spots are in, or you know what their strengths are. And for the most part, if you're a mama bear or papa bear, whatever, you kind of already know certain things that works for your kids and what doesn't work. I realized literally like this morning that it's better for me to get up the second graders and get them out the way and get started, and then invite the kindergartner and the fourth grader in, because trying to have everybody sit down at once was becoming more of a headache for me than them, because I'm not able to monitor. And I think a lot of parents are saying the same thing. One of my friends who has a 5-year-old, he has a middle schooler and a high schooler. He's realizing his middle schooler is the one that needs the most attention, because he's realizing that when he was in school, some of the stuff that they've been saying is now showing up at home. Like when they're saying like he's not paying attention to A, B, and C, or he's doing, you know, the bare minimum, now they can see why. So I think this is definitely the time for parents to be able to invest a lot more time into their children and figure out what works for them. I realized my son Adonis is an awesome penmanship. His penmanship is awesome. Whereas to the fourth grader, it looks like chicken scratch. We had to rewrite all of the work this morning because I couldn't understand it. He couldn't read it back to me. So it was like, well, how can you write something and you can't read it back? So that was our aha moment this morning, was that, okay, the second grader knows how to write really neat. So I think that goes for a lot of parents, like I said, is finding out what works for your kids and what's not working.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I learned my son can draw. I did not know that, and I saw him doodling when he was supposed to be writing, and I was like, "Oh wow, that's really good." And he goes, "Yeah, mommy, I like to draw," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I never." So my mom probably gets it because she's the one who picks him up after school, so I don't get that part to share with him all the time. So I bought him a drawing pad so he could draw more often. And I like that his teacher's been sending everything home. Like, she'll mail it, whatever I need, she'll mail it to me. She goes, okay, whatever you need, any more supplies, she mails it. So that's pretty nice of her. Well, I don't know if she has to, but I thought it was nice. And I was going to say, I lost my train of thought. The scheduling. I've learned to schedule a whole different way than it was more get up and go. So now I have to take time and actually figure my kids out, where I don't think I was spending as much time with them before as I am now. So now I'm getting to see who likes what and what works for them. And even my 3-year-old, I'm learning like stuff that I didn't even know about her. So it's really kind of working out that we have this time home with them.
Wonderful. Well, this is kind of leading into my next question. Thinking in terms of areas of opportunity, are there things that schools, from your perspective, can or should be doing that they aren't doing right now? And I'll let Carrie start.
I think one of the most important perspectives that I want to bring to this conversation is that parents desperately want to help their kids. We want to help, but we're not teachers. We don't know everything that you guys know. You know, in the pre-COVID times, I used to say to, you know, teachers and school leaders all the time, like, listen, I'm a parent activist, you know, I'm a political animal, you know, you don't want me running a school. Like, that's not my expertise. I'm not a teacher. And boy, do I ever know it now. But, you know, I am a mama and I know what works in my house. So I think the perspective I want to bring is that, you know, that old adage that we all know, that our babies act very differently at home than they do at school, has not changed. So having the expectation that my living room is going to turn into a classroom and that mama is going to turn into Miss Rodriguez is just crazy town. My kids are still going to act up and be their true selves because they know they can do that at home. It's life is different at home. So I think, you know, I appreciate the fact that schools have done such a wonderful job of trying to immediately rapid respond. And I want to put it out there, especially because I love the fact that I'm speaking to the New York Charter Schools Association. I'm actually a district school parent. I'm a waitlist parent. I can't get my kids into charter schools in Massachusetts because of the cap. They have been on waitlist for a very long time. I love charter schools. I've been to so many charter schools. I talk with charter school families. I am a true supporter of charter schools, but I just can't get there's no seats for my kids. What I love that you guys have done is that instantaneous turn on a dime. Let's figure this out. Let's put the kids first kind of grit that we immediately saw from the charter schools. Like, if we've got Chromebooks and equipment, we're going to turn them out. We're going to send them into parents. That was extraordinary. But showing parents a little grace, a little patience, and understanding that we're not teachers. We don't have your expertise. And just, you know, being kind in those moments where we may not be able to meet your expectations, and understanding that just because we can't maybe execute the schedule you have in your head in the most pristine way because of context that happened, because some of us have, you know, babies that are young as 2, and then we've got older kids, and we're trying to, like, many of us are the essential workers, we're the first responders, we're the folks that have just lost our jobs and are on the phone for 8.5 hours trying to get unemployment. There's just so much going on for us. We desperately want to help our kids, but showing us a little grace, a little patience, and helping us through these moments, and understanding the context is so important. And frankly, one of the most powerful tools I've gotten so far was from a state chief in actually Indiana, who sent me a chart. And some of this is going to sound so simple to you guys. You're going to be like, Carrie, you didn't know that? You're crazy. But as a parent, I didn't know what to expect from my child. Just overall, like, how long should I expect my child to be able to sit and be engaged with math or any academics? How long can I expect for a first grader to sit and pay attention to one particular, I don't know those things. You know, so as a mama, you know, I saw those schedules up on Facebook. I wanted to, oh, okay, we're going to do a math block. We're going to do an English block. We're going to do education all day long. Nope, that's not working for these little boys. That is not life. My kids are not going to sit on Khan Academy for 4.5 hours. Let me tell you something. That was a very difficult conversation I had to have with Sal Khan about how my babies could not sit on his website that long, and that was not going to work. Can imagine how that conversation went. But I'm going to say I really wanted to do it, but I didn't know my first grader should only be, you know, engaged with academics for a maximum of 60 minutes the whole day, or the fact that his attention span was only going to be about 7 minutes. But once I had that information, things started to make sense. No wonder why this little boy's trying to run away from me after I'm trying to get him to sit down for 10, 20 minutes and focus on one thing. His brain is not built for that. Or that I was thinking he was going to have here we're going to do your ELA block, and then we're going to do your math block. And I'm trying to get this little boy to sit down for 3 hours in a row. Little boys don't do that. I don't know that as a parent. So I was thinking I was failing. So help me with that. Empower me with knowledge and show me a little grace and patience, because I don't have your fancy education degrees. But I do have a lot of information about my babies, and I care very deeply, and I want to help them. So I would say that.
Absolutely. What do you think, Deborah and Kenya?
So I'm laughing while Carrie is talking because, yeah, boys don't sit still for much longer. I'm a proud parent of the point system, or like something like incentives or whatever the case may be. And we was already doing that at school anyway, but, to promote being able to focus and things like that. But since they've been home, I'll buy whatever fruit snack you want, like whatever's going to keep you entertained, because I know that you got to obviously complete these tasks, not drive me crazy.
I ride
We don't went through the world's what is it called? Trolls World Tour, whatever the name of that movie is. We done bought that 2 or 3 times. We done bought the fruit snacks to match it, like whatever's gonna work. I think the great thing that I can honestly speak for, my kids attend Troy Prep, and my son Adonis has IEP, so he gets different services, and his special education teacher, I'm just like in love with this guy. He's been doing fabulous work with my son, and he also invited my other second grader to actually sit in on the Zoom calls with them in the morning, which is a benefit for me because now I don't have to give him that extra attention or have to do the work twice. So he's been allowing the 2 second graders to sit there for the hour. They think they sit for about 40 minutes. He sit there, they do their packet. He's been going Monday through Thursday. So I'm like, he can't do no wrong in my eyes as far as I'm concerned, because that's been a huge benefit. The one thing I would say that I was a little frustrated when things first started taking place is that it seemed like nobody didn't know what was going on. And I don't necessarily blame the school for that, but it just seemed like nobody knew what was going on. And my family in particular, we was victims of a fire. So any like electronics that they had, like tablets and stuff, they hadn't had their own individual ones any longer. And a lot of the schools weren't able to give out Chromebooks and things like that. So that was a little frustrating. And I figured out stuff for my household and we worked out good. But I think I would have been able to adapt a little easier if each child had a setup. You know what I mean? But I'm hearing like from some parents that I know in New York City that their kids are going on Google Classrooms, and I'm listening. I'm like, ooh, let me just like be happy with what we got, because their schedules seem a lot more intense than what we're dealing with. And I don't follow the schedule, Carrie. That they sent the schedule home. We don't follow that schedule. We've got our own rhythm going. I'm not trying to interrupt our rhythm. Like I said, we like fruit snacks in here and marshmallows and like, I'm not arguing about what they're eating for breakfast. Sure, if you want to make a bowl of cereal and eat a slice of pizza, as long as you're completing your work, I am A-okay with it. Like, I think the parents got to figure out what's going to work for them and kind of, keep the balance and keep your household, like, comfortable as possible.
I agree. It's just trying to keep your sanity. And I also have a little boy, and my son has an IEP, and he has ADHD. So trying to get him to sit, it's like right now he's on his iPad because that's the only way I could be in here without him interrupting, because he likes Minecraft, anything he has to build. So it's kind of like figuring him out to kind of manipulate it so I can get him to do what he needs to do. I'm sorry, that's what's working for us, and it's a lot of breaks in between because I had spoke to the teacher because she had a schedule and it was all the subjects and everything was due, and we were at night, 8 o'clock at night, still trying to do classwork. He doesn't even get homework. It was just the classwork. And I'm like, okay, this is not done. This is incompleted. Come on, you have to finish it. And I had to reach out to her like, look, we can't do this. I said, you're going to have to either figure out a new method or give them an extension. So she spoke with other parents and they agreed that, you can't push everything into one day for kids with IEPs. You only have 12 kids in the class, and they're not used to this fast pace. So she's like, oh, I was going off of general ed for second grade, and she's like, I realized it was a bit much. So she adjusted the schedule. So I'm like, and when she adjusted it, I was like, thank you. Like, like, did you see that how much stuff you had? And then they have other subjects. They have gym, and they still have science and art. And I'm like, listen, you're going to do gym. But when I take a break, when I go comb my hair, you can have gym. So it's a lot. It's a balance. Like,
What about wrestling? When they're fighting, does that count as gym?
Yeah, throw her in there. And the little one, I throw her in the class too. And they have morning meetings. She does the song too. And they know her too. She goes, oh, hi. I'm like, listen, it's a 2-for-1. I'm like, she's just going to be a
God, you guys are all making it work. I have a 3-year-old, so I'm just, as long as I can make it in front of a screen on time, I'm doing good. I'm doing good today.
Haven't seen a cameo.
Just oh, you're fine. In terms of what you were saying, Kenya, just giving your school feedback. What if you were leading a charter school right now? What would you be doing? Because this is the feedback that school leaders would like to hear. How are they going to engage those parents?
Definitely keeping open contact and reaching out to the parents, not just by email, because I had to talk to his teacher about that. Okay, emails are great, and I know you have to send it to multiple people, and that's easiest for you. But sometimes a personal phone call, I know you don't have time to video chat, but even if you do, that's even better. But, you guys are usually with these kids from 8 o'clock in the morning to around 3 every day. So I think they should be more engaged with the children as far as communicating, not only through we had a morning meeting. Like, no, they should be able to reach out to their teacher. They say, oh, can I make an appointment to call you at such a time a day to get a better feel of the subject. Maybe she should go over it with them on a video call. And I feel like I'm doing more of her work. She's assigning it and I'm executing, like I'm her co-teacher or assistant teacher. And I feel like the teacher should be more engaged with the lessons.
Carrie?
I want to jump in and just really underline that, how important that was. I was really surprised. I've seen some schools do this really well and some schools not. When I think about especially my first and second grader, there is a special love between a first grader and his teacher. Like that is like a bond. And, part of what made it so hard when we weren't at school anymore for my David, the baby, was not seeing his teacher anymore. And so I remember I asked her, I sent her a message. We used Blooms, and I said, Carrie, could you please send me, her name is Carrie too. I said, Carrie, could you please send me a video for David? And she sent him a 20-second video, just like her saying his name. Hi, David, good morning. I miss you. I miss our class. I hope you're having a great day. 20 seconds. That little boy must have played that video 400 times because he just misses his teacher so much. So that personal touch meant everything. And we could kind of refer back like, okay, we don't want to let her down. Like she's like, this is the messages we got today, just that personal touch. But aside from that, I think what Kenya is saying about like having teachers reach out to us, I think that was a piece that was missing from a lot of this. Like teachers have so much information about our kids, spending 10 minutes picking up the phone once a week to say, hey, this is what I know about David. This is what I know about Miles and how he learns, just to give us a little insight, a little coaching. Parents, if we're going to be the educators, we need a little coaching into that. Now that we're here, What I would love to see all charter schools really embrace is going all in. We're kind of in an emergency education state right now where, you know, we're going to do the best that we can. We're trying to figure this out. I'm hoping that all of you, especially in the charter community that does educational innovation better than anybody else, thinking outside the box, getting ahead of the curve. We're looking at you guys. You got to like own this piece of it, making sure we have a world-class plan for when schools reopen. I want you guys thinking about it day and night from all different kind of perspectives. And I don't want you doing it by yourselves. I want you doing it with us because we have some ideas and some thoughts about how that should happen, but especially around assessment. How are we going to determine what has been lost, what has been won, the information, the data that I have as a parent that you're going to need, that I'm going to need to introduce to educators? What are we going to do so that you get all of this information that Kenya has, that Deborah has, that I have about our kids that you're going to need to help support them? And what is the plan to help have an equity infused educational recovery? I'm going to be yelling about this for the next 3 years. Equity infused educational recovery. What are we doing to reimagine education using parents as partners? Because we're here with you. How can we work together to make sure that our children have everything that we need to make sure that whatever regression has been felt or we're dealing with, we're able to mitigate that using the information that parents now have about our kids, so we can be partners with you.
I was on mute. Just to piggyback off of what you're saying, Carrie, you had mentioned earlier that you were putting together a National Parents Union poll, just polling parents on the reopening plan, what's happening in terms of students returning. Could you talk more about that?
Yeah, so I'm gonna have a little secret here. We're gonna just keep it in this little New York, safe space, so nobody can talk about this. We haven't issued the press release. I just got off the call with our pollster, so like really inside scoop here. So
Okay.
we have done at the National Parents Union a poll. We hired a big fancy polling group, the Echelon group, big fancy political pollster to really dig in to quantify how parents are feeling right now. Anecdotally, like I'm talking to charter school folks, anecdotes don't mean anything without data backing up so that we can make it actionable, right? I know who I'm talking to here. You guys are speaking my language. So we needed data to back up. I can't just like hop on Zoom calls and say, this is how parents feel. I want to give you actual actionable data that you'll have. So we hired a pollster. We've done a national poll to really determine how parents are feeling right now, where their anxieties are, how they're feeling about reopening, what they want to see. And it's going to be a tracking poll. We're doing this poll every single week to see what the trends are, what's working, what's not, as the conversation kind of shifts. So I do have some insights that we're going to be releasing, but I do want to tell you, by a margin of 2 to 1, parents do not want schools to be reopened until you can give us assurances that they are 100% safe when it comes to health and safety and disinfection and maintenance and all of those things. That is priority number 1 for parents. They would rather have their children fall behind by a margin, again, of 2 to 1. They'd rather keep their kids at home and just kind of do the best they can until we can figure out how to keep all of our children and staff and educators safe at school. So that's priority number 1. But also by a margin of 2 to 1, which I think is incredible, is that parents do not want to go back to the status quo of what we had before, about the inequities in underperforming schools and things that weren't working, a system that was just so married to the status quo. We knew it was leaving kids behind and it wasn't serving every kid. But what you guys do best is innovate and think outside the box. And you've come under attack politically for that forever. You've been the punching bag because you do that brave work of standing up and saying, no, there is a better way, and we're going to find it and we're going to explore it. And if we don't get it right the first time, we're going to reimagine it. That's what parents want. And this poll is telling us definitively, again, by a margin of 2 to 1, that parents do not want to go back to pre-COVID-19 inequitable, unaffected, like just not, the old status quo of education. They want us to reimagine, they want us to move forward and really innovate in education. And I know that you guys are going to be leading that charge. You've already figured out a lot of what works, and they want to see more of that. They don't want to go back to what things were before. So to me, that's really encouraging, especially in a moment where we have parents across the country that are so engaged. We have to be. We're on the front lines with you in our living rooms. So I think this is a moment where we really do turn challenge into unprecedented opportunity. And I'm really excited about, having parents lead that national conversation with data. So get ready for it.
Wonderful. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you for giving us a little sneak peek. There's about 100 or so folks on here. Not sure how we can keep it on the down low, but we'll try.
I'm going to get in trouble with all of my communications folks, but that's all right.
Deborah, and everyone else can chime in because we already kind of touched upon it. Just looking into next year, I know we talked about just really including parents' feedback in this process. Let's stay here. One thing that we want charter school leaders, staff, teachers, family liaisons, they're all listening in right now. What do we want them to think about in regards to next year's plans?
I have to make sure I echo what Carrie was saying, because I think that the most important factor is that the schools have some kind of parent engagement, parent partnership, something to that effect, because I feel like I'm getting a lot of the treatment I'm getting because I force my relationship on my kids' teachers in my kids' school. Like, I want to make sure that everybody there in that building, from the janitor to the head, know who I am. Every parent is not going to do that. So I think when you go back into the school, after all this is said and done, I think that having the parents on the team of planning out stuff is going to be beneficial, because I don't want my kids nowhere that I don't feel safe in sending them. And before all this happened, I will leave my kids at school, and be fine and be comfortable knowing that they were going to be safe. And this COVID-19, there's not going to be that same sense. It's not going to be, the teachers and the principals, and they can't keep them safe. And it's not by their own, fault, obviously. But I think the main thing is if they're going to set up like this panelist situation that we're doing right now, I think it's awesome, because you're going to get everybody's different perspective. So when they start reopening the schools, and it's going to the governor as well, the governor of New York, I think that when you are looking into opening the schools, don't just talk to the principals, don't just talk to the leaders of the schools or the education department. You need to speak to parents. That's why I'm pushing so hard for this organization. And I want this parent speak and advocate, because parents need to know that you are the first voice for your children. No one can't say you're bad or good if you're just speaking up for what you know is best for your child. So making sure that parents is involved in reopening the schools is probably the best way to help everybody feel comfortable.
Carrie, Kenya?
I want to give Kenya a chance to jump in here. I think she's on mute.
Kenya, you're on mute.
Yeah, I'm worried mostly about safety, because it's like they weren't hardly keeping the schools clean as it was. Now, my son's school in particular is pretty clean, but I know like it's a lot of schools that are nightmares, and kids get colds and then they're out for a week. And then some people send their kids to school because they have no choice. They have to send them with the little runny nose or something like a cough, or, oh, no, they don't have a fever, they're good. And you can't do that with COVID-19. There's no, oh, well, they had a little runny nose, I didn't think much of it. You can't do that. Those days are over. So now it's like making sure that you can ease our fears, calm our fears, and know that, okay, September or end of August, or that you're going to be able to reassure us that our children will be safe.
Absolutely.
And that means so many different things. Like, these ladies are right. And again, this is what we're seeing in the national polling. This is what we're seeing anecdotally, as these ladies are just like me. I'm talking to families every single day in my neighborhood, in my state, across the country. Number one with a bullet. Parents aren't dumb, okay? If you don't have bathrooms that are functioning, if my kid can't wash their hands, We're going to need masks. We're going to need masks that are replaced on regular intervals. Not all of us can afford masks. Little boys are little boys. They're going to be jumping all over each other. 6 foot social distancing. How are you? What is that? How are you even thinking about that? You're going to talk to me. Like, that's not a thing, little boys. So what's going to happen? And if my little boy is jumping on your little boy, like, I know my kids are disproportionately targeted for disciplinary action by virtue of being brown little boys. You know, how are you going to make sure that that's equitable? That's just one thing we're thinking about. We're thinking about what happens if there's a student sitting in class next to my David who suddenly starts, exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19. How quickly are you going to tell me about it? What if the teacher gets it? Are we all going on quarantine for 14 days? And if we are, well, how are we learning? So this is what mamas and daddies and abuelitas and everybody, this is what we're thinking about right now. And that's why our context is really important. And again, these things work best when you don't bring us along when the cake is already baked. Just because, and I say this all the time, and I know you might know it, but you really got to know it now. Just because you're poor, black, or brown doesn't mean you're stupid. People are talking down to you. When you're not included, and you else got it wrong. So if you bring us along now and we help you, we're going to be more bought in. The plan is going to be better. It's going to be more comprehensive, and it is going to actually get you closer to the goal you want, which is having healthy schools that are taking care of our babies, and we're graduating and giving every child equitable access to opportunity. And that's what we're looking for. So what I want to say to all of you right now is sit down with us, listen to what we need. I think everybody is so well-intentioned, and I appreciate it. But right now in this moment, it's like trying to drink from a fire hydrant. There's so much coming at you, you can't even get a sip. Let us tell you what you need. Let us co-create. Let us collaborate with you. Don't be afraid of us. Just because we may not show up in the perfect, pristine, and fancy ways that you may be accustomed doesn't mean that what we have isn't valuable. These are our babies. We are so invested. And, we can do this together. We want to do this together with you. So bring us along with you and be in conversation and community with us, and we're going to get there together.
Can I add something, Shara? Shara, I'm sorry. Carrie was talking, it just made me think, because I'm always thinking on the medical side. I worked in a doctor's office for so many years, and I think that when they do start to reopen the schools, not only having parents included, but they need to have someone from the medical perspective, because I can't even tell you how many times kids were coming in for head lice treatment. And I think that some policies is going to need to be changed about, like, okay, we can't send a kid home if they have a fever, rather if they don't have a fever for this amount, or, how I think it's 99.8 or something like that, then they get to go home or something to that effect. But whatever those policies is going to have to be reshaped for those reasons, because like I said, it was, I was seeing bed bugs, I was seeing head lice, and this was coming from just children interacting with other children and passing it along. So how, if we couldn't maintain that, how are we going to be able to handle COVID-19? So I think some policies got to be changed.
We are going to be looking at the American Academy of Pediatrics and their recommendations for our kids. We actually have a task force that we've put together with parents across the country, leaders on both coasts and in the middle, everywhere, coming together, putting together our recommendations in concert with the American Academy of Pediatrics, because unless we have assurances that what you're going to do with hallways, what you're going to do with classrooms, how you're going to disinfect, what the cafeteria looks like, what the playground looks like, what the nurse's office looks like, when you're going to tell us what happens, all of those things, temperature checks, all of these things. We need to know. We need this information. These are our baby. I would rather have a child alive that doesn't know how to read than one who is devastatingly sick and on a ventilator who we took a chance on. This is not the moment for experimentation and guinea pigs. We got to get this right from the beginning.
Absolutely. And I'd just like to segue into this is just revamping, and this is really pushing that this is bigger than just what's happening in our schools, what's happening in the cities. We need to push out information. We need to get information from counties. We need to get it from the state level. So I just want to share our Action Center link. We are pushing out a statewide advocacy plan. We hope that you folks will join us on all fronts. You can check the chat box and you can check that link out. I have another question. This is something that just came up, so this is hot off the press. We all know that districts across the state are facing financial difficulties, and many of them are trying to block charters. They don't want us to grow. This week we saw talks about charter moratoriums in Rochester and Buffalo. How do you think charter parents specifically should be responding to actions by school boards?
Parents need to start getting on school boards. That's part of the problem right there, is that there's nobody, I know in Troy, I can't speak for nowhere else, but I know in Troy, New York, a lot of the school board members are not parents of kids that are going to school right now. I know there was a issue, they were saying that they were gonna cut a reading program, and it wasn't even from the charter school that my kids attended, was from the local school district, and I went like bananas on Facebook and kept resharing it because I needed people to understand that when you don't have certain programs for children, especially Black and brown children, they're deeply affected by that. So to cut an ELA program is like crazy. That's bonkers. So parents need to get on the school board. You need to go to meetings. I know in my city, they're always held like twice a month, and they pick a different school location, and you usually can go on the school's website and look up the dates. So I think that's the first move.
And from our perspective, and again, don't feel like you're alone, because this is happening all across the country. I just wrote an op-ed in the Sacramento Bee because they're trying this stuff out in California. My perspective on this is that, I find it disgusting and morally bankrupt to use a moment of crisis to advance a long-standing political agenda. We will be using every single lever at our disposal, up to and including lawsuits, for making these kinds of drastic, unnecessary policy decisions during a time of crisis where you cannot determine whether or not open meeting laws have been violated, whether or not information has been disseminated to the community in a timely fashion, whether you have solicited information. We're going to be challenging on all fronts, but that is one of the reasons why parent activism and advocacy is so important. We are the constituents, and holding these folks accountable directly. What I'm telling our affiliates, the more than 200, is that we got to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. Rapid response in this moment, and paying very close attention to the fact that there is all this kind of political monkey business going on at the same time. It's unacceptable. And we are watching, and folks are going to be held accountable for this. But, this might be a time where you might be saying, oh gosh, maybe we don't need to, maybe advocacy would be too much. You know who your parents are, your go-tos. As school leaders, you should be activating your go-to parents, saying, hey, you got to make sure that you're paying attention to what these folks, this county is doing, or what these folks are trying to get over here, and activating them, because those are your best assets. And I've been encouraging states through their charter school associations across the nation to develop a team of titans. If every school, every single school, every charter school in this country should be able to come up with 2 powerhouse parents, and you know who they are already. Like, you should have a statewide parent council that you call on, that is meeting quarterly, that is up to date, who is well-trained, who is media trained, communications trained, politically trained, and ready to call BS on all of this stuff. 2 parents per school. And I got to tell you something, if you're a charter school and you cannot come up with 2 parents that are willing to fight for you, you may want to take a look at what you're doing there, because something's wrong. But if you can come up with 2 parents, you put them together in a statewide council, you are going to have a powerful body. Because I'll tell you something, you get 5 parents to call a school committee member, you can shut some stuff down. You can do it. So imagine if every single charter school in New York had 2 parents put together in a powerful parent council ready to fight for you, that would be fire. I would suggest you do that now in this moment, and start nominating, get them trained up, and put them to work. That is your secret weapon, and it's untapped right now.
Kenya?
Sorry, I keep forgetting to unmute. I'm talking in my head. Okay. Yeah. I don't feel that now would be the time to cut education, period, whether it's charter schools or MI schools. It's just like they're using our our crisis as an opportunity to say, oh, well, we're going to cut budget. You already felt that way before COVID-19 came about. You already felt like charter schools were special and they were getting special treatment, where they should be more included instead of excluded. And I feel like well, when I was going to school, they weren't charter schools, it was Catholic schools and private schools. And when I did go to public school, they made it feel like, oh, you think you're special. But it's not as far as being any special treatment, it's that your parents were fighting for your education. And they need to have more vocal parents in these boards, the school boards, to speak up for their kids and to come to the meetings and be more engaged along with the parents and the teachers together to come up with solutions to keep the schools funded and stuff like that. Sorry.
Well, I definitely concur with all you guys. This feedback and your help and just all your ideas and insight on how we can, get our parents ready, put them on the front lines. This is initial feedback. This is the feedback that we need our policymakers to hear. So I appreciate it. Please, if you have more ideas, we encourage you as well to chime in with our Action Center, reach out to me directly. Carrie, this is a question for you because you've got me fired up. I have nowhere to go. It's almost 5 o'clock and I'm fired up. Can you just tell folks who haven't heard about the National Parents Union, can you just tell them more about your organization and some of your objectives?
Yeah, I do want to encourage everybody, like if you were inspired by this conversation, you feel like you need to hear more from parents, like what they're going through, what their struggle is, to engage with us. And we're very transparent. You can catch us everywhere. If you go on Facebook, as I said, Deborah was on with us this week because we need to check in. We want the real talk, real authentic experience. What is going on in Troy? I hadn't checked in with Troy. I checked in with New York City. I checked in with Westchester, all these different places, but I had not checked in with Troy, and I want to find out from Deborah. So that's what we're doing all the time, is we're getting this firsthand experience from parents, like what are you seeing in your community? What's going on in your house? So I want to encourage everybody, you can go to our Facebook page. We have programming almost constantly. Right now, in the background, we have a program called Dad to Dad, where it's dads across the country connecting. White dads, Latino dads, Black dads. We have right now, they're talking with a formerly incarcerated dad from New York, talking about his experience fighting for his kids, a very intersectional conversation about men going through this experience and supporting their parents. At 9 a.m. we're in English. At noontime, we're in Spanish. At 2 o'clock, we have special programming for families who have special needs. We check in with Detroit. We check in with Tennessee, with Florida, all over the place to get that real parent perspective. And then at 9 o'clock at night, we do a social and emotional checkout for parents, just to say, you know what, these days are tough. It's okay. Let's get your chi in order. Let's get some spirituality. Let's get your head right, because we got to go on to this for another day. It's been 8 weeks. So we do this together in solidarity. We don't do it perfectly. We offer tips and tricks and stuff that we figured out. But if you're looking for more of, what are parents going through, you can check in almost all the time there. So the National Parents Union, again, is a group of 200 organizations across the country that are all, parent equity warriors and have been doing this work for a very long time. There are pockets of parent power across this country, a lot of folks that have been fighting for equity in education, fighting for choice in education. And they've all come together to form a united voice to fight for our kids and to really make sure that kids are at the center of our education policy discussions, because for too long, it's really been the wants of adults over the needs of children. And parents are the referees that can come in and use our mama voices and say, hey, do you remember why we do this? It's for our babies. And these are our babies. And we know that you're here, you know, to get them to graduation day, but we're here for life. So let us help you, and let's walk down this path together, because we're the ones who have some real skin in the game. And frankly, we got a lot of power that's untapped. And so that's why we've been doing this work together, and it's been extraordinary. It's such a joy to be able to connect with parents like Deborah every single day. It's wonderful to know I'm not alone either.
Very good. And we've also shared the link to the National Parents Union Facebook right in the chat. Just one, if you could give specifically Deborah and Kenya, just one takeaway to parents, you know, one tip of advice how to survive the rest of the school season / transition into the summer. Anything, one small tip?
I would say, like, literally just breathe. Like, that's the best thing. Just breathe. And sometimes it's okay to be like, I need a break, and just walk away. Like, the laundry room has been my best friend for a couple of days.
Absolutely. Kenya?
Hang in there. Days you can't get through it, take your, like she said, take your break. Take a walk. Walking has helped us a lot. And reach out for help. If you need help, call someone. Call your friend, call the teacher, call somebody. Don't try to say, well, it's okay. No, call for help.
Absolutely. Self-care is the best care. I just want to thank everyone for tuning in today and participating with us. This was a much needed discussion. Thank you to the amazing parents, Deborah Garrett, as well as Kenya Homley, for chiming in, and the fearless co-founder, president of the National Parents Union, Carrie Rodriguez. Thank you so much. Please join us next Thursday, same time, 4 p.m. to discuss the census with Rochester Mayor Lovely Warren, state legislators, and a representative from the U.S. Census Bureau. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good night.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day.